of course, electoral process and many other things related to national development. And of course, wherever you are, once again, like I said, thank you for joining us. And we have a lot of issues that we want to discuss. And of course, this program, like I said, is brought to you by Gambia Participate in partnership with, of course, the UNDP and the European Union. And for the next 60 minutes or so, we are going to explore more on these issues like I have just mentioned, good governance and of course electoral process and of course issues related to that. So wherever you are, you can of course join the conversation. As always, you do by sharing your comments and contribution on our various social media platforms. We will be very much be glad to receive your comments and contributions wherever you may be. And later on, of course, we will open the conversation so you can join in. We'll open the lines and you can phone in and let's interact on the matters that we are to discuss in this program. Mbokk yi ñu ngi leen di nuyuwaat beneen yoon fii ci Eyeafrica TV amaat mbégte àndaat ak yéen ci beneen jotaay bi nga xamante ne special jotaay la ñii di Gambia Participate ñoom ñoo leen ko indil baaxee leen programme bi nag ndax ngir ñu waxtaanee ngir réew mi ak doxalini réew mi surtout ci mbiru démocratie ak doxalin bu baax ci réew solo si ak lan moo tax loolu ñu war cee def taxaw seetlu ñooy ko waxtaanee day doon lu am solo incha allah moo tax tey ñu ànd ak yéen ci jotaay ji nag Gambia Participate ñu ngi ci ànd ak ñi nga xamante ne mooy UNDP ñoom ñoo ci jàpp ak European Union doole leen bu baax pour ñu mun a indil leen ci programme bi su ko defee incha allah fi ngeen mënta nekk nag ñu ngi leen di ziar bu baax di leen nuyu ñu nekk ci biir réew mi wala ci biti réew di ànd ak ñun ci programme bi ñu ngi leen di gërëm bu baax waaye yéen tamit dinañ rafetlu déggee ci yéen incha allah seen ay xalaat ak seen ay gis-gis incha allah ci kanam tuuti mën ngeen ko siya ci seen comments yi bu of course kanamee mun nañ ko read out wala boo leen amee li ngeen bëgg a leerlu yi tamit mun ngeen koo def waaye ci kanam tamit incha allah dinañ ubbi buumi jokkoo bi ngeen mun a call joxe seen ay xalaat ak seen ay contribution ñu am mbégte nag ci jotaay bi ànd ci ak ñi nga xamante ne mooy borom xam-xam kilifa yu rëy ñu ngeen ràññee leen bu baax ci réew mi si seen ay taxawaay waaye tamit si seen ay doxalin incha allah ne leen jox kàddu gi ñoom tamit ñu nuyoo incha allah ñu soog a nag yaatal waxtaan bi dinañ ko jaxas baax dinañ ko tàmbale ci anglais wala ci english incha allah bu ci kanamee tamit ñu dugal ci suñu làkki bopp léegi-léegi gars yi ñu ne soo waxee local language ñu ne suñu làkki nag du local de mais bi ñu wax leen national language sax moo tane ndax mënuñoo jël rakki jàmbur ñu ne boobu moo gën a am doole suñu bos day garaaw lool but anyway ñu ngi leen di gërëmaat bu baax xam naa ci kanam dinañ déggante but once again thank you very much and like I said of course, this program is brought to you by Gambia Participate, and of course, Gambia Participate is a non-partisan civic organization promoting transparent governance, of course, public accountability and civic or citizen engagement. And so we're going to discuss more about democratic process and good governance. So I'm very much glad to say I've been joined by two distinguished personalities in this platform. Of course, that is Mr. Bran Gay, who is, of course, a seasoned lecturer and program manager for Center for Research and Policy Development, CRDP. He's with us. And of course, another gentleman with us on the platform, as you have already seen him on your screen, Mr. Madi Jobate. He's not new to anyone in this country now. He's the executive director of Edo Francis Center for Human Rights and Justice. And so I'm going to start on my immediate right. Mr. Jobate, good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you, and glad to be here to discuss this very vital topic, of course, with our my co-panelist, Biran.
Yeah.
And I look forward to an interesting conversation, an enlightening one for that matter.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Good to have you in this platform. And Mr. Guy, good evening, and thank you so very much for being here. And we allow you to extend your greetings to our ardent viewers.
Yes, thank you, Amadou. It is indeed a great honor to be here and to share this wonderful event with Honorable Madi Jobate. Looking forward to the discussion and hope we can share our thoughts and perspective on whatever is set out for the discussion.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Guy, and good to also have you on the program. And like I said, we be talking about good governance, democratic or electoral processes. We all know Gambia is gearing up for much talked about 2026 presidential election. So it's only important that we start discussing issues relating to that. How do we get there? And of course, that we have to talk about governance. We have to talk about electoral processes as well, and citizens' engagement. And that is why I believe Gambia is starting the journey with the citizens in such a platform. So I hope you will also get into the conversation. Yeah, Mr. Jabari, let me start with you. We talk about good governance. If I should ask, what governance means, or good governance, if I may ask, in our context as a country, or in a Gambian context, if you can explain that for us to understand, or to better educate us, if I may say.
All right, thank you. I must apologize first. My son was, got triggered today.
Oh, sorry about that.
So I may have some sneezing or but it's just sinus. So thanks for the question. Two things: governance and good governance. There is nothing Gambian about that, or Chinese or American or whatever. Governance is basically the process, the act of a people governing themselves. What institutions they put in place, what laws they put in place, what processes and tools, mechanisms in general for them to manage their affairs and resources. So governance is always taking place, whether at the level of the home or an organization or a society, because people will always manage their affairs and resources. Now, where it gets into the idea of good governance or bad governance, now it is where you are talking about certain principles and standards, probably certain objectives as well. So that when we say good governance, what experts generally have said, I mean, it's a governance system that is anchored on, human rights. In a way that it creates space for participation, so that everyone participates, and that includes recognizing diversity in society, so that the mechanism in terms of the institutions created, the laws in place, the processes and so on, recognizing diversity ensures inclusion, so that nobody is excluded, especially on account of, let's say, disability or ethnicity or race or religion and other, identities, because it can happen. People are separated. If you look at South Africa during apartheid, or even the Gambia, many people were discriminated simply because of who they are. So governance recognizes therefore inclusion or diversity, so that it ensures inclusion so that there is participation by all. But beyond that also, good governance entails transparency in terms of the institutions, in terms of the officials who would manage these institutions, and those institutions who would manage public resources and public affairs, decision-making processes and so on, are transparent. But also on what terms, on what laws, on what rules exist. Good governance entails that these are easily accessible to the public, understandable, and relevant to them. And in the case of transparency, therefore, where it exists, it also leads to accountability. That it is not only those who are managing affairs and resources to do anyhow, but they also are held to account, to render account of their decisions and actions or lack of them. So all of this also, when you look at it, is established within a framework some would call the rule of law. That at the end of the day, governance of a society is not based on the whims and caprices of one person over there or a few group of people, but rather, it's laid down rules, and that is so important, the rule of law, because it avoids or prevents, and where it happens, it detects, let's say, corruption, abuse of office, conflict of interest, those kind of things that can harm and even ensure the performance of institutions, because you will have institutions that are set up for a purpose, for an objective, to deliver goods and services. But it is not just to deliver goods and services, but to deliver efficient, quality goods and services in an efficient and effective way, so that citizens can enjoy. So when you look at good governance, therefore, at the end of the day, it deals with these issues, these standards, these principles, so that the very objective of human rights, creating human dignity, protecting human dignity, freedom, and above all, shared prosperity, peace and security are obtained.
Okay.
That is what good governance eventually is.
Yeah, talking about governance, like you said, or good governance, how important is it for a society or a group or an institution to embrace good governance in a country, for example, like the Gambia? And also in most cases, does it entail or specifically focus in a special center or group? For example, you talk about, in our case, the country, we talk about governance. Everybody focus on the people in power, the leaders, government.
Yeah.
Does it only matter in that area? And how important it is for society to embrace that?
Yeah, very, very important. I talked about participation. So that when you look at participation, it's the citizens as individuals, but also as communities, but also as groups. And in the context of the Gambia, like many other countries, it's a multi-party system. So political parties and groups like Gambia Participate, and Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, and all the CSOs, all are stakeholders, but also the media. These are all participants in the governance, the private sector.
Indeed.
So the governance is different from the government. So the government is just one institution, one stakeholder, participant in the governance process. But all others are all participants, and we all participate in different ways. Yes, the government is there. We pay tax to them. They have institutions. They deliver goods and services, in which includes the protection of our rights, the delivery of healthcare, education, and so on. Political parties are there to hold government to account. Civil society is there to play that role. Media is there. In fact, the media, the Constitution has a role for them. The 1997 Constitution. So all these are participants. So it's not just the government. The government is central, though, simply because government is the primary duty bearer. It is to the government we pay our taxes, and the government is responsible for the delivery of services or to create the enabling environment, is a regulator, and so on. So the government's role is very, very critical. And so that's why everyone connects and focuses on the government.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the importance of it is that in the absence of good governance, what is going to happen is dictatorship, bad governance. And bad governance can be in the form of dictatorship. Corruption will flourish. Services will not be delivered or delivered efficiently. So that there will be exclusion, there will be denial, and there will be violations, and so what that means, eventually, it will create a huge inequalities, imbalances. People will be discriminated because they are persons with disability, or they belong to a certain ethnic group or religion, or from a particular region, or whatever they are. So it creates these inequalities, and so the gap will also expand. Therefore, those who have, and it can lead to conflict.
So if I understand you well, so in a sense you are saying there can be no development without good governance, in essence.
Absolutely. There cannot be, if there is no good governance, sooner or later, the society would break down. There's no doubt about that. And that evidence is glaring across the world. Yes, so one can say that without good governance, peace and stability, development, would be will not be sustainable.
All right, thank you very much. I will now come to Mr. Brangay. We just listened to Mr. Madi Jabati. He's explored on the good governance and all that. I want us to talk about the role of citizenship in enhancing that good governance and the democratic institution. How important it is that citizens participate in this process as well.
Yes, for me, I think Uncle Madi has just touched base on everything. But on the aspect of the citizens' engagement, participation, is very key. When we talk about accountability, citizens, the political culture where people are aware of their basic rights and responsibilities in the state, they will be able to hold leaders accountable. And there are various mechanisms of holding leaders accountable, whether it be during elections, where citizens by the people. Not every citizen of a country can go to the National Assembly directly and represent them. directly. That's not the case, and that's why we have indirect form of representation, where through people's representative in the assembly, they will relate to the desires and needs of their people. They solely there not to represent political party interests, which is often the case in the Gambia.
Absolutely.
Even voting in National Assembly is along partisan line, where assembly members do not go back to their constituencies and seek the mandate, the perspective, or the belief of their people in a given political event. For instance, there are so many ongoing events in the Gambia since the change, constitutional reform, for instance. We conducted research at the Center for Research and Policy Development, where a majority of Gambians, for instance, said that they need a new constitution. Overwhelming numbers, 87% maybe. But again, when it comes to the voting aspect, that pattern does not exactly to the needs of the people. And for me, I think that's where accountability lies. Those elected officials, are they accountable to the people? Being accountable means responding to the needs and aspirations of the people, doing what they want you to do, which is also part of the fundamental principle of rule of law and inclusive administration, where people are included at every level of the decision-making process. For me, I think these are the fundamental pillars of accountability, where the citizens can hold the government accountable. But also, you must have a government that is willing to listen, a government that believes in the democratic principle, not in a dictatorial environment, where you do whatever you want. But even dictators are elected by the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
They seek the popular mandate of the people.
And eventually they're given the power to.
And eventually they're giving the power. In 2016, many people do not believe that Yahya Jammeh can be ejected out of power. But the citizens do so. They decide and speak. And for me, I think elections is the most famous means of holding leaders to accountable. Although there are other state institutions, the role of institutions cannot be emphasized. Independent institutions that are set up purposely to serve as an oversight mechanism to those in power, such as the NHRC, National Audit Office. These are old independent institutions that seeks to hold government accountable. But again, you must have independent institutions, because if they're not independent, they won't be able to perform their duties and roles.
As expected.
And that has to be explained by law. That's why you also need laws that respond to the democratic principles, because the two goes hand in hand. If you have dictatorial law, for instance, issues around accountability may not be exposed. So that's why in the Gambia, there have been discussions about constitutional reform. We are yet to have a new constitution in place, which is fundamental towards the transition of ensuring that there is proper accountability mechanisms that citizens can use.
And I was going to ask, when you talk about the role of the National Assembly members, especially you did a survey and many Gambians, or majority of Gambians are saying they want a new constitution, and the elected representative who decides or have a faith on that constitution, but eventually some of them did something or took a position.
In the Gambia, I don't think so, based on the behavior of National Assembly members and political parties, of course. That's why I said, if we say that we live in a democratic state, for instance, where power belongs to the people, but again, those few elected minorities make decisions on behalf of the Gambians. For instance, a constitution. We've gone through a series of stages of our constitutional reform agenda. But again, what happens? Maybe 1% of the population sit at the National Assembly, deciding the fate of the nation in terms of having a new constitution in place, going against the wishes of the people. For me, I think we can say that our democracy has been hijacked by those few elites in governmental positions or in government institutions. And the National Assembly has a huge role to play. Because if we don't have an independent National Assembly that is responsive to the need of the people, not a National Assembly that is responsive to the need of their political parties, because there's a difference.
Yeah.
Although political parties are embodiment of national interest, but at times their interest could be narrow. And whether that embodiment of national interest is truly what they stand for is also subjective. Because when they get to power, you realize that they may do different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But whatever the case may be, the role of National Assembly is very simple. It's to perform oversight function, to ensure that as lawmakers, the laws that they're going to make is in line with the fundamental principle of rule of law.
Why do you think, finally, NAMs are sometimes been influenced by their parties more than the people who elected them in power? Because they say they're elected through a political party, and in most cases when issues of the constitution or something of national interest stands, they sometimes listen more to what their party, the position their party took. And sometimes they seem to take the same position, different from what in fact some of the electors may want them to do.
Maybe that is perhaps they believe that real power lies within political parties rather than in the hands of the people.
Wow.
We have seen National Assembly members who voted against the force that were victims in the upcoming, in the next election.
Yes.
So many of them lost their seats.
Absolutely.
I think that is an indication for National Assembly members to always listen to those that elected them into office in the first place. But this has been a problem, not only in the Gambia, but across Africa as well. Partisan politics, where those elected officials from political parties representing in national assemblies tend to lean more towards the direction of their parties or even the direction of their party leaders rather than the direction of the greater good. The greater good means the majority of people behind the election into power. I think there's a fundamental difference which needs to be explored further.
All right, thank you.
And maybe if I just to that, it's rather unfortunate, you know, as he was explaining how parliamentarians, you know, tend to prioritize their party, you know, and even individual or, you know, political interests. But the Constitution is very clear in Section 112 about the responsibility of National Assembly members. And it states very clearly that inside the National Assembly, parliamentarians should be guided only by the law and their conscience, you know, and upholding public interest. So, so long as you are elected a National Assembly member, you are inside that house. Your party interests, your individual interests, your party leader interests, you know, should not even exist. What should exist now is your conscience in terms of the public interest, and that public interest in terms of the law, or in terms of the law, because they create the law, to also create the law in a manner that that law serves the public interest, and that law is not to serve any other interest. I mean, based on your conscience, that you are honest to the issue, you are committed to serving the public, and act accordingly.
But why do we usually see something different in our case? Because you have explained what the law says, but usually, what our NAMs usually do is something contrary to that. And is it because some of these NAMs, maybe you are elected for a first time and probably thinking of a second time, and if I should take a different position, different from my party, I might not be chosen for the next 5 years or the upcoming elections, and that could be costly. Yeah,
you know, rather unfortunate. But to also say this is not peculiar to the Gambia National Assembly. You'll find many other parliaments in democracies. This tendency there, this trend. Parliament is a political house, and it is parties who come there. There is still not an excuse for a National Assembly member to ignore public interest, to ignore your conscience and the law, and only serve your party interests or your party leader's interests. But yes, it is a big problem. You know, but I think it goes back to, or the solution to that goes back to what, you know, Biran was talking about, elections and accountability. That I think the only way probably we can address this is to have an informed citizenry who are going to punish parliamentarians who disregard public interest and the law, but serve other interests which are usually against public interest. By now, we should have had a constitution, for example.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, it failed simply because, in 2020, parliamentarians, a few of them, decided to vote against it. And we see how that trend has continued in 2024. And so it now rests with the people that as constituents, I mean, as electorates, to say, I will vote for a parliamentarian, again, who has demonstrated adherence to his conscience, to the law, and defended public interest. Otherwise, I'm not going to vote for this person.
In fact, that would lead me to bring this connection between election and governance. We are heading to the president's election, crucial moment in 2026, and I want us to talk about bit about voter participation and how we elect. And if I may ask, probably, why is it that every voter count in elections or in an election?
Well, one legitimacy, because if some people are prevented from voting for any reason, as I was talking about diversity and inclusion, it means on account of something, some people are excluded, so that eventually that elected official does not have the legitimacy simply because of some people being prevented for some reason to vote. And so that also affects, therefore, the institution, let's say the presidency or the parliament or the local council would not have the legitimacy because it does not come from the free will of all eligible voters who came to vote, and nobody denied to vote for any reason. So for purposes of legitimacy, it's important. And connected to that is representation. So that at the end of the day, you as the elected official would recognize that you are representing everyone because everyone voted. So that you are not just representing, those people who voted, and therefore, what about the rest of them who did not vote? How would they feel? How would they participate in the overall governance of that society? So it is important that everyone is allowed to vote. And it's unfortunate in the Gambia there are so many people denied to vote by law, and which is sad. For example, prisoners don't vote in this country, and Biran mentioned the National Human Rights Commission. They have issued an advisory note or recommendation that the voting law, I mean the electoral law, should cater for prisoners to vote because they are citizens, regardless of what they did or why they are in prison. People in the diaspora do not vote, and they are equally citizens who should vote in elections in the Gambia. So these are huge limitations in our elections, therefore in our democracy and the governance of the Gambia, because it means the voices of certain people are not heard, are not considered. And Amari, that's a big violation of the Constitution.
Oh, really?
Yes, because the Constitution under Section 1, subsection 2, established the Gambia as a republic. And it says the sovereignty of the Gambia resides in the people of the Gambia. So that sentence alone captures all Gambians.
Absolutely.
Yes, so therefore, nobody should be denied to exercise their sovereignty, whether you are in prison or in a hospital or in a diaspora, or you are a student, or you are in the army, or whatever you are.
In every position you may be, you should be given the opportunity to participate.
Yes, so long as we set the voting age, at 18. Some countries, they even reduce the voting age to 16.
16, yes.
Because those limitations are there, which are not necessarily undemocratic. I mean, it was 21 in the Gambia, but it was brought down to 18. And I would go further to even say we bring it down to 16, so that to the greatest extent we make more Gambians bring their voice, because that also enhances the quality of governance. Yes, as more people are able to vote, it means they would be interested in the matter, and they would participate. And so it would only strengthen the quality of decision making, the quality of our institutions, the quality of representation, and therefore the quality of governance in this country. But we have a lot of issues with our elections.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to ask if is there anything we can do as a country to amend some of these issues that is denying or obstructing other citizens of participating in election. We talk about the diaspora. Of course, we all know recently what happened in the National Assembly again. But we talk about the prisoners. The inmates should be given that opportunity, but that's not happening.
That's not happening.
But why? And also, why is it important they should be given that opportunity? The inclusive participation. You talk about the youths, the women, the marginalized groups, for example. They all. I think it's important everybody to have that, like you said, that opportunity. But for one reason or the other.
In simple terms, I think that's saying fake machibole.
Wow, fake machibole.
So if I'm sitting here, they said we are the ones here to sit here today, and imagine you are just asking and having conversation with Biran. How would I feel sitting here? Or the other way around. All right, so I would feel like, but if I'm sitting here, you call me a panelist, I should join the conversation. And so if I didn't join, one, I'm excluded, but also it discredits, it delegitimizes this program. All right, for that matter. So that is why it is important that all citizens participate. And you cannot therefore say this person is a prisoner. So therefore you don't have a voice in the way this country is governed, because even the prisoner, that prison, in which he is, you and I have all voted to determine how the prison should be by the people we elect. And that prisoner also should be part of the people to decide how the prison should be managed. All right, that prisoner have contributed the funds that went to that prison, all right, and to other aspects of governance or development in this country. So it is important therefore prisoners and everyone else vote. And it's sad because you ask the question how and why and so on, but it's a very simple thing, all right. We went through a dictatorship, Birhan made reference to that. Now, if you recall, in 2012, our political parties at the time constituted themselves into what they call Gambia Opposition for Electoral Reforms, or GOFA. By 2014 or 15, they came up with about 14 demands for electoral reforms, and which they submitted to the president at the time, to the IEC and to other international stakeholders. And in this, they made a lot of reforms. Recommended a lot of reforms. Time limits. To abandon the attestation. For example, diaspora voting. Fees. Sport quarantine. Yes. First past the post. Absolute majority. So they 14. And we saw, of course, in 2016, Solo Sanden rose up for electoral reforms. All right. So when we got to 2017, the people who took over, they were the people who established GOFA. They were the people fighting for electoral reforms. Yes, and but in fact, we remember 2015 probably there was an electoral reform in 2015. Jammeh put the registration of political parties to $1 million and presidential candidates to 500,000. All right, and when these new rulers came in 2017, we saw in 2018, they revised that. All of those things. And now, fast forward to 9 years, they've doubled it.
Now it's 2 million.
So it goes to the thing Biran was talking about, parliamentarians upholding their conscience and the law and the public interest, and not looking at their partisan interest or party leader interest or selfish interest. And so the election bill, has been with Parliament for the past 5 years. We saw them expunge the diaspora voting clause. We've seen them increase the party registration, deposits for Parliament and so on, and President. And many others are there. Issues of prisoners are coming. We'll see what they would say about it. All right. So these are all problems, but the solution is very easy. It is for us to accept that our intention is good governance in the Gambia. And that has to be based on democratic principles that Biran talked about. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Biran, talking about where Mr. Jabati have just ended, the inclusivity is very important, and he highlighted some of the, very important issues that were discussed and highlighted before by authorities. But what do you think citizens have a role in all this? He talked about problems and how we can solve this, exclusion by others and including others. And after all, everybody deserves to be part of the system or the process, but it means there is a problem, as you have mentioned.
Yeah, I think so, because I believe election is the complete opposite of exclusionary politics.
Yeah.
Election means census, popular census,
Yeah.
by the people, determining how they're going to be administered, deciding power distribution in a state. And therefore, of course, the citizens have a huge role to play. But again, I think in the context of the Gambia, we have done what we are supposed to do. That is to support the then opposition, bringing them to power.
That was Coalition 2016.
Coalition 2016. They promised a series of reform.
Indeed.
Constitutional reform, security sector reform, electoral reforms. But the things that we're discussing today, most of it are captured in the election bill. So there's a bill out there. If you ask, they will tell you that the bill is at an advanced stage now. But again, just look at the things that they have excluded, which is completely against the will of the people.
Yeah. That's what I'm voting for, example.
I will just reiterate what I said earlier. Our democracy and our transitional process has been hijacked by a group of few elites. A group of few elites. For instance, election is approaching next year. We don't even know which election or electoral system are we going to be using. Because if we decide to go with the draft election bill, if it is accepted into law, meaning so many aspects of our electoral process will change. So many aspects will change. But again, notwithstanding, on the question that you asked, what can citizens do? Apart from performing the accountability mechanism, is holding government accountable. Holding them accountable during electoral periods. Ensuring that the manifestos of whether incumbent political parties or parties that are in power are adhered to while they're in power. Because that is where you can measure it. Election is a process through which we aggregate what government has done, what government has not done. And therefore people have the power in the Gambia every 5 years to decide the fate of a government, providing an alternative or continuing with the existing political system. And in as much as we want to hold them accountable, we have to participate. Participation is the only way where such ideas can be achieved. Ideas of either having political change or having the existing system last. Whereas during elections, people can come out in their large numbers to participate, to decide how they should be administered moving forward. So I think therefore fundamentally, citizens are the voice, they are the power. This idea of power belongs to the people is a factuality. It's not just a mere abstract statement, because it is them who can decide who stay and who leaves.
So in essence, the power belongs to the people.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm going to ask this last question in English before we shift the discussion in the local language. You talk about electoral process or elections, and I want us to talk about the free and fair elections. You know, that's also an issue in electoral process in many countries. You know, in Africa, for example, but of course it happened also in some part of the world. Now, how free and fair elections threatens good governance, if I may ask?
I think it is the basics, free and fair election. But again, sometimes it is also subjective. In terms of determining what constitutes free and fair election. People think that, for instance, incumbent cheating during elections and so on. But there are so many other tenets that we can identify. For instance, incumbent political parties, for instance, they have an advantage because they're in power. They have access to state resources. We've seen in the past where incumbent political parties be it PPP, if you study Gambia's electoral history, APRC, and even now NPP, using state resources to campaign, which does not constitute free and fair elections. Okay. That is an undue advantage, utilizing state resources. And this is not only peculiar to the Gambia, but across West Africa as well. So there should be a strictly laws in place that forbids such. Even though there may be law, but the incumbent political parties will always violate such. Campaigns, for instance, you see, because resources also wins your election in Africa. The cost of winning election, the cost involved, is a fundamental pillar.
It can have an impact on the outcome of an election.
For instance, during the, is it 2018 Nyamina West by-election? I was there observing the elections. And then the incumbent won. And as an electoral observer, we witnessed the members of the ruling party giving out gifts on stage to women association. That is practically buying their consent.
Inducement.
Inducement. That closer to an election period. What message will you be sending to the voters? All these are steps for me that I believe should not be in line with the principle of conducting free and fair election.
And interestingly, sometimes even the ruling party would argue that even the opposition does that.
Everybody does it, but it is worse when the ruling party does it, because they do it at a grandiose start. But again, also notwithstanding, in the same by-election that I mentioned, GDC was also there. They were giving out boreholes and so on during electoral period. What was the motives? Because the goal of political parties is solely to contest and win governmental powers. And whatever way they achieve that, they don't care. Because that is their fundamental principle, how they can get into political power. But I think as part of the principles of democratic administration and rule of law, it is fundamental that our elections are free and fair. But that responsibility rests on the hands of the IEC as an independent electoral body of the country to ensure that political parties adhere to this principle and ensure that the powers given to it by the Constitution are executed during electoral periods.
All right, Madi, finally on free and fair elections, as I've just asked, how important it is in any country, in a democratic system, in terms of good governance, and what in fact qualified for an election to be termed as free and fair election?
Yeah, thank you. As Brian highlighted, very important. So we hear the term undiluted choice of the people.
Exactly.
So when we say undiluted, that means there has not been corruption in any way you can imagine. And so things like what is said, inducement, voter inducement, vote buy-in, treating, you know, these are all offenses you'll find in the Electoral Act that political parties, politicians engage in during elections. So that, you know, in one sense, therefore, you can separate free and fair election, because free would now relate to participation, that, you know, nobody is prevented to participate. You know, let's say physically or through other legal means. You know, in other countries they have that. They would say, okay, if you cannot read this thing in English, you will not participate. You know, so there are no barriers essentially for people to participate. In some countries, election, you are going to vote. I mean, they can deny you to enter the booth and vote. You know, so so free elections mean everyone is free to participate. No undue barriers are created. All right. So that the fairness of it, therefore, of election would be, you know, the processes, you know, of that election, particularly between the stakeholders. You know, so the freeness may relate to the electorates, and the fairness in terms of the electoral stakeholders, like the political parties, for example, they are also not prevented, you know, to participate or enjoying undue advantage, as Biran was saying, and other forms of malpractices. so that, you know, if you look at the Gambia, and as you're saying, that abuse of incumbents, you see it in many other places. You look at GRTS, which is our national television. You can look at it from January to date. How many times have they provided coverage to UDP, GDC, or DOI, you know, PPP, and
PAP
so on.
and other parties.
Right. And then how many times have they provided coverage to NPP
as the ruling party?
As the ruling party. Now, there's also a very thin line because when we say the incumbent does not abuse state resources, that is fact. But, you know, he also said relative. So I think we need to highlight that relativeness or relativity of that issue, so that if the president is going to campaign, you know, in Boraba, he will go with his security. That is state resource. All right. He will go with certain state officials because that's the president, that job, because he's also a president sitting right now. You know, and he's a party candidate. All right. So in many instances, the state resources will follow him. All right. But it is for the president to be aware, and for the electoral body, the IEC, to be also, you know, alert, to be vigilant, and of course civil society. That's why we do the monitoring, and, you know, even political parties and ever to be vigilant to make sure the use of state resources is only to the extent of enabling the president to perform presidential functions. Those use of state resources should not extend to the point of enabling him now as a party leader of a political party, or that party's interest. And that has been the problem. So that a lot of the time, they do things and they say this is the president.
I was going to ask this. I know you want to say something, but I'm tempted to ask, does the IEC have that power to maybe the president, he's a candidate because he's the president, to tell Mr. President, hey, this is, you can't do this. You know, this is not allowed in this process. In as much as you are the president, this is not accepted. Can the IEC do that?
Absolutely. So IEC has, in the Elections Act, you know, Section 92, is what they call Code of Campaign Ethics. And the Code of Campaign Ethics highlights, well, one that is related to ethical conduct or decent politics, no inflammatory words and stuff like that. But in the rest of the other sections, you know, in other parts of the Electoral Act, it talks about that inducement and so on. So the IEC, as the custodian of the electoral law, is the enforcer of the law. And so any violation of the law, the IEC should call out whoever did the thing, I mean the violation. All right. So, for example, part of the election law provides what they call a cooling off day. That's the day before the election. No should campaign.
Which many will say the Gambia is the most dangerous political day.
But on that day, you would see that some parties are engaging.
It's a political party. So, the day before election.
And we hardly see IEC issue even a statement, not much less to engage those people and take some punitive actions. But they have, and to be fair to the IEC also, they have not much enforcement powers are in the Constitution, in the Electoral Act. And I hope the bill would address those things. Because there are so many other problems, when you come to fairness of the election, like through campaign financing. All right. A lot of our parties here are getting funding. All right. So funding can be state resources, but funding can come from individuals, entities, and so on. Now, what is presently in the law is that you cannot get funding from outside the Gambia, all right, from non-Gambians outside the country. But disclosure, even though the 2015 amendment talked about political parties providing annual audited accounts to the IEC, I doubt they do that. Or IEC has set very good standards of format as to how they should do that. So we have a problem in terms of the electoral body enforcing. We have a problem with the electoral law, and so the body enforcing this law as it should. So the law is inadequate, very inadequate, and the IEC is very weak as it is now. But also probably because of all of that. Then we have a problem of the incumbent, and the practice has been since Yahya to Jammeh to now, flagrantly just disregarding the electoral laws and so on. But we have an opposition also that also does that, but also a weak civil society to also confront this issue. So it's a whole big problem with our electoral system that I hope we will improve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madi Jobate. And of course, I know it's only now important at this juncture. We remind our viewers ne inange setan program bi nga xamantene Gambia participate ñum ñoo leen ko indil ñuy waxtaane mbiri good governance electoral process ak ni ko ak lu mel noonu ndax ñu ngi waajal elections xam naa nag time bi sori na so dañu war a of course ñëw gën a waxtaan si suñ làkkay léegi xam naa ne man suma soose bi taxu koo baax noonu xam naa tamit suma buggee challenge Mr. Biren ak Mr. Jobat ñu waxtaan ci Pël dina métti de wala si wala njaago but anyway xam naa ne dinañ ko jaxas baxas comme programme bi nuñ koy defee incha allah am na ñu ngi profité sax nuyu ñuy seetaan Gambia situation today Mr. Diallo mu ngi in UK di seetaan appreciate na programme bi so mu ngi wax sax nañ ko gën a def si national languages yi pour ñu bari ñuy seetaan ñu xam tamit solo si ñu fàttali rek programme bi kon ni ma ko waxee Gambia participate ñoom ñoo ko indil askan bi ñu leen ko jàppale mooy UNDP and of course ak European Union ñoom ñoo dooleel programme bi su ko defee ñu gërëm leen ci loolu bu baax a baax ñu ngi waxtaanee lu am solo Mr. Gueye xam naa ne fu ñu yem rek la ñoo tàmbale ndax time bi du si des bari du jar ñu dellusiwaat gannaaw yëpp lu ñu waxtaanee waaye mbir mi daal lépp lu ñuy waxtaanee mooy fexe xamal askan bi solo li nga xamante ne réew war na koo am wala good governance soo déggee good governance mooy doxalin bu baax ci réew loolu nag dafa am li nga xamante ne loolu lu koy indi te doomi réew bu nekk war na ci am taxawaay ni ko Mr. Madi Jobaate waxee civil society bi doomi réew mi ci boppam taskati xibaar yi opposition bi ak National Assembly mooy député yi ku ne am na taxawaay bi nga xamante ne war nga ko ci mën a def waaye fu réew mi toll taxawaay doomi réew mi ci li war a tax te ñu am doxalin bu baax foofu laa gën a bëgg naa nga gën a yaatal foofu balaa ñoo ñëw ci doxalini élection bi nga xamante ne war naa jaar yoon ba doomi réew ci boppam naka la war a taxawee ci réew bu mu nekk wala ci réewam ba mu gis ne doxalin bu baax am na ci réew moom.
waaw du foog naa loolu dafa am solo bu baax a baax.
waaw
pour askan wi. di jéem a saytu naka la nguur di doxee. ak naka la réew wala doxee tamit. ndaxte mënuloo am réew si ginnaaw askan wi. ndaxte képp ku falu tey askan wi ñoo la fal. kon ak lépp loo mën a def si nguur. foog naa ne dafa war a am jokkalante si diggante nguur. ak askan wi taxawaay askan wi nag lan la si nguur. su élection jotee loi may na la jox na la sañ-sañ. ñu war a fal ñu fal leen si ay anam yu leer. waaye emut rek si fal nit seetaan ko. da ngay saytu nu muy defee liggéeyam tamit.
kon loolu am na ci solo.
ak si am solo.
doo élect rek nga bàyyi député bi dem wala président bi dem. noonu rek
déedéet. loolu la ñuy wax oversight mécanisme di saytu.
doxalin yi.
waaw naka la ñuy doxee. ndax léegi député yi. ñu ngi def seen liggéey. ndax ñu toog si nguur gi ñu ngi def seen liggéey. wala bunti àttekat yi tamit ñu ngay def seen liggéey ak mbootaay yu tënk nguur yëpp. ndax ñu ngay def seen liggéey foog naa ne dafa am solo pour askan wi bàyyi xel si loolu noonu. ndaxte si mbootaay yii nii. si la ñuy mun a xool naka la nguur gi liggéeyee ñu mun koo teete xool tamit ndax lu ñu nekk di def jaadu na wala jaaduwut su fekkee nag àndut ak yoon. am na askan wi nu ñu leen mun a génnee. mooy su élection su xawee ba élection jot ñu dem fal leen wala ñu génne leen léegi député yi tamit ñoom askan wi ñoo leen fal foog naa ñoom ñoo gën a jege si askan wi sax dina ñu nekk si nguur ndaxte ñoom ñoo jógee si gox-goxaani kon bépp décision bu nga xam ne ñu ngi koy jël kàddu dañ si war a diisoo ak ñu leen fal ndaxte ñoom lañ fa nekk di toogal waaye Gambia tamit saa su ne dañ dee faral di gis ñi di député yi political party yi leen dee gën a déglu diina askan wi
fàtte nit ñi leen fal
ñu leen fal te foog naa ne jafe-jafe yu nekk di jànkuwanteel yëpp jamono bii nii loolu la da ngay gis askan wi bugg a ay loi yu ees comme depuis 2016 ba change bi amee askan wi leer na because ñun def leen ay gëstu ñu leeral ni ñoom bugga neen ay loi yu ees waaye léegi député yi ay nit yu néew bañ si loolu noonu lu tax ñu def ko nag ñoom ñoo xam
te ñoom luñ wax ñoom mooy taxaw
waaw te ñoom luñ wax mooy taxaw ndaxte loi dooleel na leen loolu noonu waaye wulu ñoo yaxanal seen doole wala di salfaañe seen doole bu leen askan wi jox ndaxte ñoom lépp luñ munti def dañ war a meeg soone ñu teewal fa askan wi di def lu askan wi bugga su boobaa dinañ mun a am nguur guñ sopp suma gis-gis
ok kon dafa mel ni su ma la déggee doomi réew yi am nañ walla wu rëy ci li war a tax réew mi tegu ci yoon diggante askan bi ak ñu ñoo jiital yaa ngi wane nit ki warloo koo fal rek nga bàyyi ko noonu mu demal boppam waaye lu ëpp ñun dañ fal ne ci réew mi bu ma la sànnalee carte ñu bokk parti ma fal la ne yow léegi mi ma la fal yaa xam loo war a def pour mbir mi dox waaye leeral nga léegi ne doomi réew waru ñoo bàyyi li nga xamante ne mooy koo jox sa doole ndax sa carte mooy sa doole soo ko joxee nag ba pare yow sa doole dafa mel ni yow amatuloo doole bu boobaa moom mooy doxal ndax ñun suñ député yi suñ seen taxawaay ñoom ñu ngee bàyyi loolu xel ci luñ gis ñuy doxee ak ndax loolu dina tax tamit doxalin bu baax buñ soxla ci réew muy am
foog naa ne daal man suma gis-gis
waaw
nekkuñ di ko bàyyi xel waaye loolu lu muy firndeel mooy askan wi tamit seen xam-xam si nguur fan la toll naka la nguur di doxee foog naa ne ñu bëri si askan wi tamit political party lañ gën a gëm diine lu yittee réew mi comme tey da ngay gis nit ne man UDP laa bokka wala APRC laa bokka njiit bii laay sànnil mënuñ laa wax si anam yu tax ñu koy sànnil
because ñoo bokk parti rek
waaw du xam-xam bu mu leen wan
du jaar-jaar
bu mu leen wan du dëggu bu mu leen wan waaye ngir ne man APRC laa bokka GDC laa bokka wala NPP laa bokka ku MPP jiital kooku laay lii nii dégg nga sànnil kon foog naa ne askan wi tamit am nañ si sañ-sañ bu baax politique fu mu toll dafa laajte xam-xam waaye askan wi tamit bokk si naka la nguur gi doxee ndaxte ñun ñooy fal mënuñoo jël ku ne iti ko si nguur fal ko su boobaa for the next 5 years luñ si am daal ñi ñoo ko teg suñu bopp kon foog naa ne dafa am solo bu baax askan wi tamit di saytu ñuñ jiital di leen fal saytu leen si bépp anam si bépp xeetu xam-xam bu nga xam ne mën na leen di natt si loolu noonu ñu natt leen si loolu noonu xool leen ndax ñoom luñ bind teg ko loolu luy mën a ant la suñ nekkee si nguur wala digle yu ñu joxoon bala ñoo falu ñu ngi koy def kon tey digle yu ñu NPP jox ndax kii di président Adama Barrow si njiitam ndax digle yooyu noonu yëpp def nañ ko
te 2021 waroon na réew mi yëpp
waaw
am lu mu dig askan wi
te
ne boo leen ma falaatee naa am lu ma def ci juróomi at
lii ak
léegi nag dafay delluwaat ci ñoom
waaw lii ak lii laay def léegi askan wi ñoo war a xool ñu peese ndax kii di président bi moom yum digle woon def na ko wala defut ko su boobaa nag la accountability di ñëw élection su jotee si la askan wi mun a xool ndax mun nañoo fal nguur gu fi nekk mu continuer wala dañuy utaat beneen alternative te lii nag dafa bokk si accountability mechanisms.
all right am na solo xam naa ne jàngat bi am na solo Mr Jobaate buñ dégloo Mr Guèye nu mu jàngatee mbir mi loolu daf may yóbbu ci mbiri civic education mooy nit ñi xam seen doole ak vote bi njëriñ bi lan la waaye ci réew mi ñu bari dañoo jàpp ne loolu dafa xalaat des kan lañ war a mën a joxoñ baaram ci loolu bu fekkee ne am na ci réew mi lan moo tax loolu mu am ndax civil society bi la ñoo wax wala nguur am na ci responsibility wala political party seen bopp duñ dee wax ak seen parti doomi parti yi pour ñu xam lan moo tax ngay bokk ci political party lan moo tax nga war a votal Mr Jobaate bu taxawee laaj ci réew mi wala la bugg a nekk député wala councilor loolu dafa mel ni ñun intéressé wu nit ñi bu baax a baax lu ñu intéresse bu ñu am rek mooy fi ma far foofu la far rek moom lay sànnil problème boobu yàgg nañoo topp dafa mel ni
waaw yàgg nañoo topp trop
waaw
so civic education dafa am solo
waaw
because comme Birane nu mu ko waxee du ne rek ne si parti bi laa bokka tànn nañ kii so man kii laay votal seetloo si dara xam nga so before loolu sax in the first place da nga ne yow doomi réew nga xam nga man dama dee ne Gambia ba léegi amaanguñ doomi réew like a citizen because pour nekk doomi réew foog nga xam lan ñooy right si doomi réew ak duty si doomi réew so nga taxaw si taxawaayu doomi réew so man suma gis-gis ku seet Gambia nu mel nii from independence 1965 to tey pour suñu problème mooy ne rek ba léegi amaanguñ ay doomi réew mais bi am nañ waaye doyut ñi si ëpp yëpp nekkuñ di jël suñ warugali doomi réew di ko doxal di ko wane waaw te loolu luy faj loolu mooy civic education so that nga xam ne réew mii béy juddu nañ fi de ay mbaam juddu nañ fi ay nag juddu nañ fi waaye suñu citizen xam nga ñoo duñ dee compter ñooñu yow ak man lañ dee compter waaye te ñun tamit nekkul ne rek just because juddu nañ fi am nga passport ay birth certificate ID card and voters card therefore sa citizen jeex na citizen yaa warugal la
dafa am lu mu àndal
dafa am lu mu àndal dafa ëpp ne rek fii laa juddoo
fii laa yaroo
fii laa màggee fii laa amee kay waaw loolu is negative tubaab ñu ne negative citizenship or passive citizenship citizen dafa war a nekk ku sawar waaw koo xam ne comme nu mu ko waxee di saytu di xool xam nga waaye unfortunately as nu ko doon waxee ñun dañ jël ne suñ jëlee demee élection number one dañoo vote rek ku ñu suñ parti jox number two su élection jeexee nga dégg politicians yi government people yi ñeneen ñi di wax ne now politics is over
absolutely
xam nga waaw ñu ne politique bi jeex na
waaw ba ñeenti at lañ liggéey rek
so ici naka Amadou man maybe su ma ko calculé like 30 years ago all right xam nga maa ngi doon jëfoo ak some politicians in Europe and in this particular case Swedish politicians at that time Social Democratic Party in Sweden and dañ ma wax something at that one day some 30 years ago around 97 yooyu noonu and ba léegi loolu dafa nekk di ring in my mind ñu ne ma Madi gis nga ñun Sweden ñu ngi am democracy about 100 years ago waaw mu ne ma waaye démocratie xam nga lifin la batul xam nga mu ne ñu ne du woode batul waaw xam nga batul da nga am woo nga am ay battle of Banjul battle of Bakaw battle of Boraba in a big war xam nga so ñu ne ma démocratie every day nga jóg nga dem nga xeex nga win oo ñàkk a win si élection nga jógaat dem xeex
doo xaddi
waaw
doo dellu
gannaaw doo noppalekul so xeex boobu mooy ne lan taxaw gis ne axay ñu ngi leen di aar suñ services ñu ngi leen di am accountability mu ngi am leer xam nga si government ni ñoo doxee doxalin bu Birane doon wax mu ngi am so loolu ñu ne ma loolu ñun loolu lañ dee def every day dañoo jóg parce que ñu ne ma soo defut loolu si élection di nga jóg ak seen sa baat so ñu ne ma démocratie every day xeex la nga protect ko waaw ñun civic education boobu moo des fii nit ñi foog ne suñ ne politics about election la su election passé no léegi let's put all political differences aside so léegi ne ma toog ma ne xam ma ñi la ñoo muy mel ni jën nga ne jën gënal léegi si ndox xam nga dafa dee doomi aadama bu ne moom bokkul si politique danga yow mu ngi mel da nga dee rek waaw yow du ndaatuloo xam nga so that civic education government ñoo am primary responsibility ñu jox ñu ko waaw because government in terms of law making and law enforcement si biiram civic education mu ngi fa
so waaye fooguloo système bu fi nekk comme dafa xala feeboo ñu nekk in power
naturally so loolu ku nekk incumbent fii dina jafe trop pour ngeen génne ko because one loi baaxuñ two ñu nekk incumbent dañoo bëgg a toppal loi number three civic education bi dafa des so all the odds xam nga yëpp ñu ngi sa favor soo nekkee si nguur so la ku nekk ci nguur most likely da ngaa yaaga ci nguur waaw waaye comme ni ma ko waxee suñu defar loi nga parliament is to defar loi and enforce the law inside it includes awareness creation because dañ dee wax ne naka ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Wow, that is true. Si loi, I mean, so demee nga yaa ñu dem si court nga ne non man xama woon ne sàcca mobile jàmbur loi bi daf ko tere. ñaa tëj de waaw waaye at the same time government bi dafa am responsibility. loi boo defar nga tasaare ko nit ñi xam. policy boo defar nga tasaare ko. looy def every day nga dem di ko wax nit ñi si dëgga.
dama dégg nit wax ne booy defar ay loi ngir askan ngir nit ñi. te loi yi ngay defar su ma juumutee Sidia Jatta la nga wax mu ne boo xamul nit ñi fexe nit ñi xam loi yi loi yi ngay defar du am njëriñ. waaw because yaa ko defar because of the people. waaw
da ngaa ñëw am si problème. yow mi enforce loi bi. di nga arrest ñu bëri because ñu bëri duñ ko xam. ñi tamit dañoo am problème because dañoo yaaxal loi bi tam dañoo ne xaw ma ko. which also du nekk excuse. so in the end chaos mooy ñëw. waaw waaye so government dañu am the responsibility loolu tax. ñu créé lu ñuy wax National Council for Civic Education. Unfortunately government nuñ leen war a doolelee. mu ngi des. waaye daa very one of the most important national institutions. ñi dañ leen war a support. government daf leen war a jox dépasse bu doy ñu nekk constantly di nit ñi. yaa ngi gis but political parties tamit dañ am responsibility. pour nit ñi civil society. xam nga and of course the media. all right so waaye ku seet mbir mi daal. mu ngi des trop. ci réew mi te loolu sonal nañu si suñu governance.
te ñu ngi waajal ay elections lépp si suñ kanam la nekk incha allah mbokk yi time bi jeex na xam naa ne waxtaan bi neex na trop te bu ñu sañoon ñu continuer. waaye ni ko olof jaayu di waxee rek xalam demoon na benn neex buum bi dog. fii la ñoo dogal waxtaan bi gërëm bu baax suñu gan yu am solo yi la ci waxtaan bi nuñ ko indee jàpp naa ne ñu bari ci yéen. ñu doon seetaan gis nga seen bopp ak solo si ñu gërëm bu baax tamit Gambia participate ñi nga xamante ne ñoom ñoo leen koo indil ànd ñi leen dooleel ñoom tamit wala ñu partner ak UNDP ak EU mooy European Union ci programme bi ñu gërëmaat bu baax Mr Birane Gueye mu nekk season lecturer waaye tamit mu nekk programme su manager foofu ci Center for Research and Policy Development CRPD ñu ngi ko gërëm bu baax thank you very much Mr Gueye kontaan nañ ci waxtaan bi and of course Mr Madi Jobane jërëjëf yow tamit thank you bu baax ñu fàttale moom mooy di executive director Edward Francis Center for Human Rights and Justice ñoom lañ àndaloon ci waxtaan mbokk yi ñu ngi leen di gërëm bu baax di leen sant bu baax baax ci ànd bi ngeen di ànd ak Eyeafrica TV waaye surtout jotaay yu mel nii incha allah li bari dinañ ko faral di amal xam naa Gambia participer dinañ ko yaatal tamit bu baax a baax ñu continuer di waxtaan ak askan bi di leen yee mbiri doxali mooy good governance démocratie élection ak yu mel noonu incha allah di leen jaajëfal bu baax di leen wax ñu fanaan ak jàmm jërë ngeen jëf